If we have a problematic area, we can do a few things. And the areas I'm talking about usually look something like this, when we have faults that shouldn't be where they are. In this case, we can see that there's this fault, and this fault, and in here we have this fault and this fault. So there's no connection in here. And when something like this happens, the best way to approach this issue is to check the length of the lines of the connected lines, and by changing the length, by matching the length of those lines, this effect could be resolved. If nothing helps, there is an option called steam. Unfortunately, this works only inside of 2D view. There is no 3D steaming at this point in Marvelous, but it gets the job done and it works pretty well. One thing to be very mindful of is that steaming does not simply flattens the surface. What it does instead, it shrinks the surface. So imagine if we went in here and we changed the weft and warp shrinkage by, let's say, we set it to 90 or 80 or something like that. Steaming is exactly the same thing, but it works locally. There are three things to know about steaming. The shrinkage, which is something that I've just mentioned. By default, it's set to something like -3, I think. So it's very subtle. And size will determine the size of the brush itself. And then we have the hardness, and the hardness is the fall-off of this brush. So if you look closely what happens in this area as I steam the pans in 2D view. We can see that the faults disappeared, but there's very subtle but still somewhat noticeable effect of the pans being shrunk. So this is a tool that is great for fixing things that do not necessarily lie next to the borders, but might be somewhere in the middle of the pans, for example, like here. And this removes effects that we might not want on our garments. Steaming also has a positive effect, if I can say that. We can change shrinkage to the positive side. We can see that here it says +100, and it does exactly what we think. It does the opposite. It expands the garments. It expands the surface of the garments, and this is not to be used as a means to fixing the steaming that we already have, because this will produce some nasty results sometimes. And what I mean by that is, let's say we have the steaming that we've done, and the good thing about steaming is that we have this blue indicator showing that this is where the steaming happened. If we want to remove this and do it in a very subtle way, we cannot really do that. We need to go into shrinkage and set it to the positive percentage, and then go on top of what we have here. The problem with that is that it does remove the shrinkage, but it adds the opposite effect in areas that we might not want to have this effect in. And so instead of doing that, if we want to remove the steam, what we need to do is we need to right click on the canvas and then remove all steam, and this will remove everything. This will remove all the steam that we have in the scene. So steaming is something to be used rarely and cautiously, because it's not the right way of achieving the results that should look accurately. The results should look accurately without the steaming. If the garments are done correctly, they should look just fine. But in those cases, in those rare cases where things are looking a bit messy, we can come here and use steaming instead.
If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description.
Another tool that can resolve some issues, and it works really well when there's quite a bit of chaos in simulation, and perhaps some garments are lying on top of another. The option is called strengthen, and to activate this, we need to click on the garment, right click on the garment, and in here find strengthen. We can also use Control H. To explain this, we need to first of all activate it, to illustrate it, and immediately we can see that the color changes, and not the color itself, but the surface changes as well. There's some gloss on the surface now, and if we simulate, we can see that the surface is becoming almost like rubber. And what happens is Marvelous applies a different material to this preset. The fabric stays the same, but it's just a simulation with a different parameters of the fabric. So it's almost like a the hardest leather that we can find in the program. This is basically what it does. It applies it to the selected pattern, and if we don't want to have this kind of effects any longer, we need to go into the right click menu and then press unstrengthen and simulate again. So this works for situations where, as I mentioned, there are just a lot of things happening. There's just so much clothing that some of it is trying to eat itself almost. So we can always come in here and press strengthen, or we can fix some of the noisy parts of the garments. We can, for example, select those few parts, press Control H, simulate, so they strengthen a little bit, then go back, press Control H, and if we want to maintain this shape, we can also select them and select solidify. So in this case, they will preserve the shape, and we won't see this strengthen effect on top of them.